President Donald Trump is now facing a new lawsuit from the hands of NPR and 3 Colorado public radio stations. That lawsuit filed Tuesday morning over the president's executive order that bars the use of congressionally appropriated funds for NPR and PBS. The lawsuit says the administration is usurping Congress's power to direct how federal money will be spent and to pass laws. The suit calls Trump's early May executive order, quote, textbook retaliation and an existential threat to the public radio system.
I want to bring back in Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes about this. This is something, Khalif, that you brought up when we first talked about this, saying, I don't know if Trump can do this. And this is kind of a common thing we've seen.
I don't have a crystal ball, Julian, but I can pretty sure tell you I know how to read the Constitution. I did teach this in law school. One of my favorite classes when I was in law school, but when I taught here, that was a subject I taught. It makes sense. If you read the Constitution, it's a clear First Amendment violation. I mean, this is pretty crystal clear. And if you look at the complaint, it says it's not always obvious when the government has acted with a retaliatory purpose in violation of the First Amendment. But this wolf comes as a wolf. That's pulling from Anthony Scalia when he talked about that in the 1988 dissent, talking about how when you attempt to retaliate, you can't always see it. Yeah, you can see this one. It's pretty crystal clear. You literally have to be blind to not see this retaliatory statement. The statements that were made by the Trump administration, even when he was a candidate-elect, President-elect Trump, that he did not like NPR story. He thought they were biased. He thought they were extremely one-sided. And it's in the Project 2025. I just listed detail by detail exactly this step, that the first thing to do was defund NPR because it was biased, heavily biased, 60% is what they said, towards Democratic stories.
We know that there is, not many people know about the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967. I didn't know anything about it till this morning, but there are some protections, right, when you've got public organizations such as PBS, NPR, where they can be protected against executive interference.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I think is great, right? So the executive directors of the CBS, not CBS, but what is it, the corporate public broadcasters, she says that even if he wanted to do this, even if it wasn't a violation of the First Amendment, that he doesn't have the right to do this because, as what you mentioned, that you're protected, they are clearly protected from any outside influence, any elected officials, what the language says. So he is an elected official, he wouldn't be able to do that. And even if we went outside of not having authority, even if we said it wasn't a First Amendment violation, then we'd have to deal with the last hurdle. It's appropriated funds from Congress. Congress has already cut the check. They've already said, earmark this money for you. So for you now to be able to say, I am going to take and roll back this money, that would be unconstitutional as well, because it would go against the separation of powers. All 3 of those would be extremely hard to jump over hurdles. Now, I've seen some weird things happen with this Supreme Court. But if this case ever made it up to the Supreme Court, if it could make it past those 3 things, I would be ultimately shocked if they did not rule in favor of NPR. I mean, because those are 3 massive hurdles that you'd have to jump over.
Well, so you predicting that with your crystal ball that you don't have, right? I mean, if that, what else do you see for this case, though, coming up next if it's not so open and closed, shut?
I think this is extremely open and shut. I mean, so if I'm forecasting it, if I'm trying to be Ted for today, right, it goes to the U.S. District Court. U.S. District Court will rule in favor of NPR. Then it will go to the Court of Appeals, and it depends on who the panel that hears it. So it could be a mixed bag, and it may ultimately be a 2-to-1 in favor of either side, right? But then when it gets to the Supreme Court, I don't care what you do. If you're looking at this clear cut on the First Amendment, let's go there. It has to be content neutral. So if I'm going to say I want to do something that violates your First Amendment rights, I cannot be content specific. Well, Trump's very own language says, I don't like their stories. They're biased and weighing to the left. Well, that's specifically content specific. So all you have to do is read his language. But if we set that aside, we go to the second hurdle. Is it congressional approved funds? Congress already approved this. And then if we go to the third hurdle, which Jason brought up, you don't even have authority to do this. I have already constitutional protections that say an elected official, i.e. the president, can't tell us what to do. And so I think if they go through just a direct reading, a clear reading, not any ideology, but just plain reading of the language, it lands every time on NPR's side, which is, I mean, it seems like a waste of funds for this to even have to go this route, because you're going to talk about lawsuits on top of lawsuits on top of lawsuits. But ultimately, it lands in the NPR's decision because all 3 of those are constitutionally protected.
All right, again, our Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes breaking that down for us. Also, though, Congress could take a different action. We'll see if that happens there.